What's up everyone? Alex here. There's been a huge outpouring of information regarding the Final Fantasy VII Remake, with its release date unveiled at E3 this year, and also a proper showing of its gameplay and combat systems. The problem with showing games in this fashion, however, is that you don't really know how the game feels. Many have assumed that due to the way the menus and the gameplay functions, that the Final Fantasy VII Remake actually plays very similarly, if not exactly the same, as Kingdom Hearts 3. Since the battle system explanation at the Square Enix press conference, there have been several press outlets that have posted their hands-on impressions of the battle system, and I've compiled a good bit of information from them. Shoutouts to Kotaku, IGN, US Gamer, and Game Informer for this info. While standard attacks can be unleashed by pressing the square button, you'll quickly notice that this barely does any damage to opponents. Instead, think of standard attacks as a way to speed up the filling of your ATB gauge, which will allow you to use items, cast magic, or activate abilities. The ATB gauge actually fills up fairly fast, so this isn't the kind of situation where you hoard a bar or two and use it for a big attack later. The developers want you to use this as much as possible. However, casting spells spend both ATB and MP, as shown in the demo. To use an ATB bar, you go into a tactical mode, which completely pauses combat, allowing you to think about your next move. There is a lock-on feature in the game, activated by pressing the R3 button, and blocking, using the R1 button, and dodging, using the circle button, does not consume ATB. Limit breaks function much like they did in the original. You get hit, you fill up your limit break bar ever so slightly. Much like Final Fantasy XIII, the Final Fantasy VII Remake features a stagger mechanic, a gauge that, upon filling up, allows you to deal more damage to said enemy, 160% more based on the E3 build. Each character has a unique quote-unquote feature when pressing the triangle button. Cloud, for example, switches between two stances, a Punisher stance, which means he'll deal more damage but swing slower, and an Operator mode, which allows him to swing normally and deal a moderate amount of damage. Barrett's is an Overcharge, which allows him to fire one single charge shot as opposed to a continuous burst. As shown in the fight with the Guard Scorpion, effective switching between characters, accomplished by pressing up or down on the D-pad, is key to winning battles in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, with each character's weapons given more utility than in the source material. For example, Barrett's guns are really important during said battle whenever the Guard Scorpion leaps to a wall that Cloud is unable to reach, allowing you to continue dealing damage even if it's far away. When you think of the implications of this system, you can somewhat map out the rest of the Final Fantasy VII cast as either close-range fighters, Red 13 maybe, range fighters, Yuffie maybe, or even a combination of the two, Vincent maybe? Square Enix was a bit coy when asked about the materia system and whether or not it changed, but they insist that it's still the same as it was from the original. But while some longtime Final Fantasy VII fans are coming around to the changes in the battle system, Square Enix has sadly not addressed one of the bigger concerns of the game. How do you make a full game out of just Midgar, knowing full well how tight the original storytelling was? One of the examples the developers gave behind closed doors is a further expansion of the characters you meet and encounter within the Midgar portion of the game. A great example of this is the classic conversation Barrett had with Cloud about the planet dying. In the original game, it played out something like this. Oh, and pardon the terrible voice acting. Little by little, the reactors will drain out all the life, and that'll be that. It's not my problem. The planet's dying, Cloud. In the remake, the same scene plays out something like this. This pump's sole purpose is to drain the planet dry. While you sleep, while you eat, while you shit, it's here sucking Mako up. It doesn't rest and it doesn't care. You do realize what Mako is, don't you? Mako is the lifeblood of our world. Cloud doesn't do anything. The planet bleeds green, like you and me bleed red. The hell you think's gonna happen when it's all gone, huh? Answer me. You gonna stand there and pretend you can't hear the planet crying out in pain? I know you can. You really hear that? Damn straight I do. Get help. Much like Cloud's reaction in the original, Barrett flies off the handle in response. While I can't keep going on and on about how Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge are now fully fleshed out characters, how Jessie now has more lines of dialogue compared to her dialogue in the entirety of Final Fantasy VII, and how Marlene's relationship with Barrett is now more meaningful than what it was compared to the original, some fans might see all of this as unnecessary padding, and frankly, I can't really disagree. Truthfully, I love the idea of fully fleshing out the characters involved in the Midgar arc, but with regard to its story beats and the implication of what a full RPG on 2 Blu-ray discs based on the first arc of the original Final Fantasy VII actually means, Square Enix has unfortunately been unable to convey this appropriately. And while developing characters more is but one piece of the potentially 40-hour-long story pie, we're still left with a lot of questions about how the entire thing will play out. Call it blind faith, but despite all this, I'm still excited to play the Final Fantasy VII Remake, but these questions will certainly persist all the way up until Square Enix decides to address these lingering questions leading up to the game's release next year. Are you excited about the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Whether or not you are, I'd love to hear if you have any concerns or even if you're excited for it in the comments below. Also, check out the links in the description.